Hey guys, all right?
Aye, alright.
I'm Dan Brinton. I'm a deputy head at Belmont School in Durham, up in the northeast of England. I have been for the last 8 years. Um, I'm from London originally, but all my kids were born up here, and my son's of an age now where we've got a season ticket for Sunderland, and the whole family are red and white through and through, like sticks of rock. So that's why I'm what's referred to as a Cockney Mackem, probably. Um, so you're in very good hands there with Lee, anyway. Very good hands. Is this your first session?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So and you all learn Ed, Lee tells me. Well, no, you're all school direct, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Why do you want to be teachers?
Gave him this earlier, Dan, but he can give you this in one sentence.
It's the holidays and the money, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, we all had different reasons. Well, they were similar, but...
One sentence, come on. One sentence.
I wanted to work in education because very much I enjoyed school and I kind of wanted to give that back to people in a sense. I love my school time a lot. That was to do with physical education, so I feel like I could, I don't know, give that back, offer that opportunity to other people in some sense.
Did you have a great PE teacher?
Yeah, I had a couple. I think the school in itself was probably more than what I remember than the actual PE teacher. I think the school atmosphere was really good. It was a very good school. The PE staff were good. They weren't I don't think they were my favourite teacher though. So it was more the school.
Did any of you have any bad experiences that have spurred you on to not let it happen to other people?
Yeah, I think not so much in PE. I had quite good experiences, but in other lessons when I was at school and when I've been in schools, there's things that people do that you think, oh, I wouldn't quite do it like that, or you think you could do it in a different, maybe better way. And I don't know, I think I just want to make sure that I was going in doing the best I can and really promoting like inclusion for everybody. That's a big thing for me, is like inclusion really.
Do any of you, personal question, do any of you come from more socially deprived backgrounds? So for example, I was a preschool meal student when I was at school, and that's one of the things that kind of drove me on to wanting to, I see education as being a great leveler, you know, so it rich or poor, education can level the playing field, and that was a massive reason for me going into education. You know, to try and give people from working class backgrounds aspiration, and a bit of hope. I had some great experiences at school as a student. I had some awful experiences at school as a student. I teach science and maths. On my first day of my A-levels, I was staying on to do English, literature, French, history, and art. And my English teacher at the door said to me, "What are you doing here?" And I turned around, walked out of school, signed up for a sixth form college and switched all my A-levels on the spot. And that's the power that you can have, you know, with your words. You can change people's lives, for the worse as well as the better. Sir John Jones said, who's a fellow Scouser, he's an Evertonian.
Hey,
Does that count? Yeah, cancel it. He said he came to our school to do some CPD once, and he said something that really stuck with me. And he said, "The good news is that you make the difference. The bad news is that you make the difference." You know, so it's a great job, and you've got to be careful. So you want some pearls of wisdom on planning?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
What pearls of wisdom have you had so far?
Not much, yeah. We'll get to that bit.
Okay. Well, I think the obvious ones for me are, in terms of your planning, is that you're trying to plan learning. So you're trying to plan what you want them to learn. What you're not doing is planning a series of tasks for them. Okay, so that's really important. It's an important distinction when you look at your learning intentions as well. We're not looking for a series of tasks there like complete a table or draw a picture, or what we're looking for is we're looking for what you want students to learn. So that's one of my first tips, is to plan learning. Another tip I'd give you is to plan backwards as well. So I'd start with, even when you're looking at someone like Year 7 students, have a look at what it looks like when they reach Year 11 and GCSE level, or beyond that to A level, and start working backwards from there. Think how you're going to deconstruct that particular concept, the knowledge or the skills, backwards from that point. So we call it planning from the top down. Yeah, don't plan to the bottom, plan to the middle, teach to the top, and then differentiate down from there. So that would be another top tip. Keep it tight but loose is really, really important. So what you should do is look at a series of lessons and plan a loose outline for a series of lessons. Okay, so I wouldn't ever be planning a lesson in isolation. I'm doing a unit on forces at the minute for my Year 7 science group, and I've looked at that holistically across a series of 3 or 4 lessons, and I've also looked beyond that to see, when they pick up forces again later on in the year, what sort of things can I bring in. Now that bit's the loose, that's the tight bit, in terms of where you're going. The loose bit means that you need flexibility lesson to lesson to be able to respond. A really good way of doing this is, sometimes often I'll give my students a pre-test, and what I'll be looking for there is I'll include information, knowledge and skills that they should have covered, but I'll also look at stuff that they don't cover, because a lot of students will bring in a wealth of experience from outside. They'll have parents talking to them at home. That might be their specialist subject. To give you an idea of that, I gave my Year 7 group a pre-test right at the start of the unit on forces, and there were 15 questions, and one student scored 13 out of 15. And that really influenced my planning of the unit, because he could do most of the stuff that I was due to teach in that unit anyway. I think the lowest score was about 6. So even the lowest performing student on that pre-test knew about half of the content already. So you need to be adaptable to that. So do try and build in time to do that, especially as you get students that are older. So look at your students who would have done PE, and they would have done sport before. They would have done units in Year 11 that they're building on stuff that they've done in Year 10. Pre-tests great. Pre-tests are great as well for sort of recapping prior knowledge that they should have too, as well as setting up cues for stuff that they should be learning in the unit. So we think that by setting up these memory cues for stuff that they might not have covered, they're tuned in to be looking for it when it actually crops up. It raises its importance. So keep it loose. Be adaptive to what your assessment information is telling you. So don't sort of go hell for leather when all of your assessment information is telling you that you might need to slow down at a certain point. Or don't spend that whole lesson that you might have planned doing the stuff that the kids can already do from that assessment information. So keep it tight, but keep it loose enough so that you can adapt your plan as you go along. I think one of the things that I'd try and encourage you to do is mark your books as often as you can. And I'll tell you why I say that. Because marking is planning. Okay? It's quite a... Lee will tell you about some recommended blogs to read, and one of the guys he'll recommend you read is a guy called David Didow, Learning Spy, and he pretty much coined that phrase, marking is planning, and marking is an act of love, so it shows the students that you care about them. But if you leave your marking till the end of the unit, and then you look at all the things that they can and can't do, it would have been so much better to have picked that up after the lesson, so that you could use it and adapt what you were doing next lesson for the next lesson or for the next series of learning. Now that doesn't have to be deep marking. That's even sitting down with a set of exercise books, 30 exercise books, having a quick flick through them to see, have they got it, have they not got it, who's got it, who hasn't got it, and try and sort of build that into your lesson. So definitely recommend trying to look at every book, every lesson if you can. We're not talking about deep marking, we're just talking about having a look to see whether they've got it. Another really good one you could use is, have you heard of exit tickets and entrance tickets? No? Okay.
Come on to that.
You're coming on to that, are you?
Yeah.
Is this a spoiler now? Do I?
No, you keep talking.
Well, one of the things that you can use to sort of check for understanding during the lesson is you can use an exit ticket, and it's just a little slip which is exactly as it sounds. You give it to them at the door as they leave, you ask them to fill it out, and then they give it to you at the door as you leave. And what you do is you will have a look. You'll mark their exit tickets. So the question that you've got to ask on the exit ticket has got to be the question that's trying to assess their learning for that lesson. And again, you know, when I was saying before about checking books every lesson, if you check their exit tickets, you know, that's a really good way of doing it. The other thing that you can do is give them those tickets as they come into class, ask them a question to see if they've retained it from the previous week or the previous lesson. Dead quick to skim and scan, and it's really good assessment information that you can get in order to plan your lesson. I've talked a lot. I'll just take some air. There you go.
No, yeah, I've got a question for you, Dan. You know when you mentioned your Year 7 forces in science and one of the students got 13 out of 15?
Yes.
How did that affect the subsequent planning of the series of lessons or the next lesson as such?
Okay, I'll bring something up on screen to show you. I'll bring a couple of bits of information. Yeah, is that okay?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, just bear with a second because my computer's dead slow, because obviously it's in the northeast.
Yeah, you're an hour behind, aren't you?
Where the cold hours is. Right, 2 seconds, guys. Forces, right. Let's have a look. Forces. Right, I'm just looking for some information. 2 seconds. Okay. Right. Just getting rid of the names. 2 seconds. I'm just blacking out the names, all right? Right. Right.
Just talk us through it, Dan, if it's not...
Here it is. I can hear my computer going. Ooh.
Well, mate, yeah, game on.
You see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. What you've got there is you've got. Let's have a little look. Is it still there?
No.
Hang on. Still there now?
No.
Hang on. Try again. I've got 2 bits I'll show you. Got it?
No.
You will have now. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, game on.
Yeah, okay, right. So basically that's just a series of questions across the top, yeah?
Yep.
And the greens is correct responses. Okay?
Yeah.
What you can see is you can see that there's the the core concepts from what they should have already picked up from primary school, as well as some of the core concepts that I would have been covering in that unit. So, for example, if you look at sort of the first question that was asked, I think there was only one student who didn't know a force was a push or a pull. Now, historically, we might have had a whole lesson where we've given them loads of examples of pushes and pulls, yeah? So straight away, bin that lesson, you know, or just spend 10 seconds literally just agreeing that. You can see where there's some bits where the knowledge and understanding is much more patchy, and remember I said that this was also looking at stuff that they haven't covered, so I didn't expect them to do amazingly on it. I'll show you how I use that in my planning, because we're talking about planning. Yeah, so let's have a look at this. Okay, so just going to change the screen share now, right? Is it back to me?
Yep.
Right, 2 secs, I'll show you how I use that information when planning a lesson. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, so basically I took that assessment information from the pre-test, yeah? And then you'll notice that I put a number of phrases that are sort of in gold there about things that the assessment information is showing me, yeah?
Yep.
So those are the bits that needed to go into the planning of the lesson. So for example, what I would have done is, as I'm sort of flicking through my notes.
That's a nice car.
That's my car. Right, see that there now, yeah?
It's got wheels.
Got wheels and everything. I know it's in Newcastle, remember. Right, so if you, can you see this gold statement down here? Yeah? Right, that was one of the things that obviously I picked up in the pre-test. So basically, you know, we're planning information that's going into the teaching as a consequence of the pre-test, yeah?
Yeah.
Right, so other bits, you know, would have included, I mean, I'll do things like a true, false and stuff. So see if I can show you another one. See that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, this is just another quick, this could have been put on an exit ticket. It wasn't, I did it at the start of the lesson, funnily enough. But here's another one, and you know what you can see is, let's have a look. I'm clicking on this and it's not.
Interesting point here, Dan, because you've got a slide on seating plan. Do you want to talk us through that?
Oh yeah, okay, seating plan. Doesn't matter how experienced you are, make sure you've got a seating plan. And basically, you know, to start off with, even if you've got no data on the students whatsoever, you know, put the kids in a seating plan, because what that tells them is it tells them that their sitting is determined by you, and it's not determined by them, and it just sends the right messages straight away. I mean, it can be, one of the things that I'll do with my kids is I'll give them a responsibility as well. So glues, sheets, books, all of these things sort of speed up the lesson. So absolutely, even if you're a deputy ed who's been teaching 20 years, you know, make sure you've got a seating plan, 110%. You can also use that to record sort of key bits of information on, possibly about, you know, their SEND status, you know, about just a range of information that you might pick up sort of day to day through the school. Can you see that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, all the time, this is what I was talking about, tight but loose. All the time, you're using that assessment information and you're feeding back in. Now, one of the things that Ofsted talk about in terms of, you know, really high quality teaching and learning is the extent to which you use assessment information to intervene with striking impact. So it's about immediate assessment that's then fed back into your teaching, there's a real tendency with beginning teachers to actually stick rigidly and dogmatically to a lesson plan, even when students know, loads of information. We're back on me?
Yeah, yeah. The thing, I would agree with you on that. Would you not, for a new teacher, for a student teacher, I think that comes through experience. I don't know how you mean. You can have, I mean, in a PE sense. We've touched upon this, plan A and plan B for wet weather, facilities being taken out by examinations or whatever. But hitting that plan B or coming away from that tight lesson plan, I don't know, what would you advise?
Well, it's difficult because we've all been there, had typed out lesson plans that are 2 pages long, that you're literally reading off the script, and what that will give you is it will give you security. What it will also give you potentially is a boring lesson that's not adaptable. So yes, it does come with experience, but I suppose what you want the people who are working with you in schools to encourage you to take those risks. So I guess it depends on the mentor. I'd much rather see you go with the learning and take a risk if you were working with me than stick rigidly to a lesson plan when it's clear that these kids know it in the first 5 minutes. So I'd want to see you break a risk, otherwise the kids aren't learning anything. However, in my experience of training NQTs and working with NQTs over the years, it's a difficult thing to break away from. It's totally dependent on your mentor, and the person you're working with. If they encourage you to take risks, then...
Next question, Dan.
Yep.
What's your take on learning objectives? Any pearls of wisdom?
I've written a blog about this. Little plug for my blog. Yeah, I've written a blog about learning objectives. There's quite a lot of information in there, but basically I'm a fan of them. I think that your learning objectives are... remember right at the start when I said you should be planning their learning? Yeah? Well, your learning objectives, use for yourself, is a way of you planning what is it that you want them to learn during that session. Now, I believe they should be shared with students. Okay? I don't think you should just read off a list of them at the start. I don't think you should have too many. I think that you should involve the students with them as much as you possibly can. So sort of breaking them down, deconstructing them, talking about words that are on there. So if you're using words on there like justify and analyze, have a conversation with kids. What does justify mean? What does analyze mean? And I think the purpose of that is that the analogy that I would use is this, and I've used it with kids, I've used it when I've been training teachers, is how many of you have ever been on a really long car journey? Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's the longest car journey you've ever been on? Car journey or coach journey?
36 hours.
Lee's been to somewhere exotic for 36 hours.
No, I've been to Morzine with a coach full of students many years ago.
No, French Alps, coach full of students, 24 hours, we've all been there, right? Okay, so let's use that as an example. How helpful is it? You get on the coach, right, and you say to your teacher, when are we going to get there? And your teacher says, when we get there. Helpful or not helpful?
Not helpful.
Okay, let's compare that to this then. You ask your teacher, when are we going to be there? And your teacher turns around and says, we're travelling to Morzine. Morzine's in the French Alps. Okay, it's going to take us about 24 hours to get there. But what we're going to do is we're going to drive down, and our first real pit stop is going to be at Dover. And at Dover we're going to stop, and everyone can get something to eat, and everyone can have a stretch of their legs and a comfort break. And then it's going to take us about an hour across on the ferry, right? But we're going to have to wait about an hour for the ferry, have about an hour on the ferry, then we're going to get off the ferry. At that point, we're going to have another break and another stop. Coach is then going to travel down through France at the northwestern tip. It's going to pass through here, 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 and here. And we should reach Morzine by. How helpful is that?
Very.
Okay, so basically, if you use that as an analogy with your students in terms of if your kids are sat there and they don't know what the destination is, what the way markers and pit stops are along the way that are going to signpost their learning, then they're not involved in it. You're not giving them an opportunity to share in their learning, and they're going to be more likely to switch off from it. And it's the same as you would be if you were sat there and somebody said to you, and you asked, when are we going to be there? And your teacher said, when we get there. You've got no idea about the journey, you've got no idea about the milestones, and basically it probably knocks you off a bit, doesn't it?
With your teachers, be it MQTs or PGCE students or whatever, with regard to lesson planning, I'm assuming that they've got to keep to a certain structure. Is it start on main body plenary or something else?
Not necessarily. I mean, historically we would have done something like that. So we've got a lesson planning template, which is exactly as you said. It will talk about the beginning of the lesson and the routines and the register and the bell task that's ready for them when they go in, and the sharing of the learning intentions, and then the next sequence of learning, and then them doing. And then the plenary. So we've used a cycle like that before, but more and more we're realising that there's more than one way to skin a cat. So I think as long as the kids are making good gains in their learning and achieving good outcomes, then who's to say that a lesson that's got a lot of talking from the front, students working individually rather than in groups. Ofsted don't insist on a preferred teaching style, and neither do good schools, in my opinion. It's about learning, and there's many different routes to that. No two lessons would look the same, in terms of one lesson could be an extended sort of chalk and talk type lesson. Another lesson could be much more hands-on. It's got to be what's best for the learning, not trying to use an activity or a range of different strategies for the sake of it.
Okay, Brill. Any questions, anyone?
That's clear a lot of stuff up about how do lesson plans and things that can go into our lesson, like main things we could be thinking about now. So.
Say again, sorry.
Sorry, it's like a good basis of things that we could be thinking about now. Like we can put all those things that you said into practice now, like straight away in school. So that's been helpful.
Yeah. Well, so my mantle now is to try and put some more meat on the bones on that. But I massively appreciate you giving up some of your time for us today, Dan. And look forward to speaking to you again next week. Don't forget, Data Man.
Oh yeah, we're doing data next week, are we?
Yeah.
Is it you three again?
Yeah, same people.
Okay, yeah, we'll do some data next week. Lee, are you going to? Did you do Teach Like a Champion or not?
I haven't yet, but no, it's it's in the hemisphere, whatever you want to call it. It's in the stratosphere. I'm coming to it.
Okay, mate.
All right. Good to speak to you, Dan. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Guys.